Welcome to the School of Sacred Sexuality, where we explore all things in the realms of the sacred sexual and the energies that flow around that and the energies that lead us home to ourselves, ultimately, the creative force within us.
So the theme of a lot of my work is to activate the Shakti, which is a creative, sexual power and life force throughout people's body, minds, and nervous systems, and therefore connecting deeper into the soul and into the divine. I always see the Shakti as an indivisible part of us. So the more soulful we want to become, the more Shakti we need to have. And the more Shakti that we have, the more we need to continually plug that into our soul and plug that beyond into the divine. So I do this using a lot of Egyptian, Tibetan, and Indian tantric techniques and technologies, of which I've been initiated to in India. And I've written a lot about this in quite a few of my books, like The Power of Shakti and Womb Wisdom, and a few other books as well, which have been published worldwide. So I've taught all around the world over the last 25 years in over 20 countries, bringing this igniting, activating power of Shakti to people from the ancient wisdom traditions in a totally contemporary, fun, and very direct way for today. So I always see Shakti as an igniting, creative, sacred, sexual self. So when I teach workshops or retreats or courses, it's always about directly feeling that. You directly experience that beyond these words and beyond books and beyond theories and beyond people getting up on stage and talking about how wonderful sacred sexuality is and so forth. For me, Tantra is all about the direct experience. And it should be so direct, true Tantra, that you can't even really remember what it is because you are so in the moment. And if you're totally in the moment, there is no mind. And so true Tantra, which goes way beyond sexuality. In fact, in India, sexuality is just seen as 20% of Tantra. Um, it's all about propelling yourself, hurtling full on into the present moment and being there totally and completely. So the mind stops, the mind becomes silent, or the mind recedes and dissolves into the background. And then you are fully present, and then you are fully alive. And in the present moment is where love is. Unconditional love resides in the present moment. So whenever you're in a present moment, you're going to feel that unconditional love. And you're also going to feel that life force, that full ignition of light and life within you. So that's what I love doing. And that's why I love sharing with people all around the world and seeing people come alive in that.
Hmm. I love that. It's potent and full of chi, force, life force. I'm curious if somebody didn't know about Shakti or what you're talking about at all, have never had an experience. Like this is the first time they're hearing about it, or at least they've never gone to a workshop. If they had to come to one of your workshops and have a direct experience of this Shakti life force you're speaking about, what I know it could have a range of possibilities, but what's some kind of feeling that they may feel, or what people have felt? What does it feel like when this moves through you? What's the feeling?
Well, out of tens of thousands of people I've taught all over the world, um, joy, love are very common. Kind of disbelief, like, wow, this is what it feels like to be truly alive. This is what it feels like to feel my true sacred sexual self. Wow. So there's a lot of wonder, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of laughter. Um, there's also a lot of healing because when the life force gets directed into specific parts of you, like the womb or the heart, then all the emotions that have been stuck there or buried there release,
Mm.
and really powerfully. So there can be a lot of tears as well, a lot of sadness, a lot of releasing of ancient sadness or ancient family things or ancient relationship breakups or um, even miscarriages, abortion, sexual abuse. All of this gets healed and released really fast once their life force is directed into those parts of your body, mind, and nervous system. So a lot of people also go have a really deep rest because once the Shakti is ignited in them, they feel so deeply relaxed afterwards. So it's like the whole system, mind, body, nervous system can totally let go, can totally release, can totally relax. And so that's really wonderful for people to have that real deep sense of letting go, release, and relaxation that they may not have ever had before in their entire life.
Okay.
And with that comes again a deeper emotional openness, a deeper receptivity, or a deeper connection with other people, and of course to yourself, and just the exhilaration, like the total joy and exhilaration of being alive, of being fully here and now with all parts of you. And that is always really joyful and delightful to feel.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, a question I have for you, since you work with so many people, and I think you must, you probably work with a lot of women, don't you?
I have done, yeah.
I'm curious, even if it's in your neck of the woods, or I know you work all over the place, but what struggles do you think women are currently facing around their sexuality, but maybe more, also more in general, but also if we maybe also look at the sexual self, like what are women facing right now on Earth in your view, and what are they bringing to you, for example?
Yeah, it's a big question. I would say there's a few factors to that. Um, One is repressed emotional, sexual, creative aspects within people
Mhm.
that they just don't know what is possible. And of course, whatever happened in one's childhood or previous relationships or miscarriages or abortions or sexual abuse or any number of factors block your life force from flowing. And it could also be your parental conditioning too. So all of that needs to be released. That's a huge factor in most people. Um, the second thing has been, of course, a patriarchal mindset for the last few thousand years, which previously, before that, there was a matriarchal mindset. So there seems to be a pattern of cycles, which fingers crossed will resolve, in the next period of time on Earth into a unification rather than a duality of patriarchy, matriarchy, patriarchy, matriarchy. So, of course, that there has been a huge repression about sexual power because when people are fully in their sexual energy, they're free. And so they're harder to control because they think for themselves. So, of course, most governments and authoritarian patriarchal institutions don't want that. So, of course, the sexual energy has been a big threat. So, of course, there's a big clamping down over the last few thousand years, which is now ending, which is great. But of course, there's still the vestiges of that. And another factor, another big factor, is that there simply has not been enough education about what true sacred sexuality is, or even just what sexuality is, and the difference between sex and lovemaking. And then, of course, the lack of men and women, both, but in this context, say the lack of men having their lingams or penises energetically connected to their heart.
Ah,
That has been a huge factor for many men because most men just want to have sex and they don't want to make love or they don't know how to make love. They have no education around it. And if they did, then I'm sure a lot more men would want to make love because it feels so much better. So I feel like there's been and still is a huge lack of education, and then the healing techniques or the opening technologies to connect our genitals to our heart, and then even beyond that into our third eye and crown and beyond. But having that heart to sex connection is so important, and it makes a big difference between having sex and making love, which is what we all want. Actually, we all want to make love. We all want to feel love. It's one of our basic human instincts. Is we want to be loved and we want to love. So having this really tapping into this really primordial need that we have and nourishing ourselves with love and making love with someone that we love um, is so nourishing and joyful and delightful. And once a man or woman really experiences that, they don't want to have sex ever again because the love is so much more potent and so much more delightful and joyful and so natural as well.
I love that. And so, so true what you're saying. It's so true that once you've experienced being able to drop into love and love making, there's no going back, really. Just a
Yeah.
question too about what you just said. First, with the woman, in terms of the current patriarchal milieu that has existed, what do you think the central message of this, call it the leadership on earth that has been the patriarchal leadership, what do you think the message has been to women about their sexuality?
That it should be kept hidden, that it's a source of shame, that it should only be used to make children, that it should only be something that is kept under wraps or just with your husband, like one person in your entire life, and that's it.
It's also
That's been the old messages, but the reason behind those messages, because that's just an effect, it's just a symptom, but the cause is that when a woman and a man, but when a woman is in their full Shakti, their full sacred sexual self, they are radiant, they are alive, they are a magnet, they are beaming this light and life force, and everyone notices it. People are drawn to it like a moth to a flame. It's magnetic. And that can lead to some issues as well, because then obviously men want a piece of that woman because they look at that woman and go, wow, she's amazing. You know? Um, but if a woman is truly in her that feminine sacred sexual self, she can't be controlled. She thinks for herself, she feels for herself, she acts for herself, she's whole and independent in that sense, although she also knows how to surrender to her trusted man as well. But in herself, she has that wholeness, she has that uh, illumination, let's say. She's alive. And that aliveness cannot be controlled. And it's a threat to any institution that seeks to control the human mind.
Hmm, hmm. You know, one of the struggles I had this lifetime with the conditioning was finding my desire again because I feel there was a central message and maybe sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle, that as a woman, we're not allowed to express our desires and we're not allowed to go towards our desires, especially sexually, but then that translates into other desires, you know, into life. If you're not allowed to desire sexually, it's hard to desire in other directions. And then that's hard to bring the manifest life to form. So I found that was a trouble for me, and a lot of women I've worked with, it's been a trouble. And then another trouble I've noticed with women is them. So first they can't express their desire, and then when they do express their desire to their male partner, oftentimes he can't hear it, and that
Mm.
also comes to another question I have for you, which you mentioned, and I feel so beautifully, where there seems to be a strong disconnection between the heart and the lingam or penis of a man, where it should be
Mm.
naturally very connected. And naturally it is connected. So that it's disconnected is quite a feat, actually. And I wondered, w why you think it is that men have disconnected their sex and their heart.
I think it's a culture that they're brought up in, and there's no education around these things. And then if you watch a movie, for example, as soon as a man and woman get together, within 20 seconds, they're ripping each other's clothes off and going for it. So that's not really how to warm up a woman or even to warm up a man, really. And you're certainly not going to get that heartful connection and that, 20 seconds of Hollywood lust that seems to be the driving narrative in today's culture. So that's where, and of course, porn is a huge factor in that as well. That's where, over two-thirds of young people today are learning about sexuality for the first time. So I think it all just comes down to education. The parents aren't educating the children, governments are not educating the children. So they're learning from porn and online and Hollywood movies and things like that. So the culture of almost every country is not set up to do that. So people, boys, men, have to find their source of inspiration and education from really distorted sources. So I feel like the way to remedy that is even from 12, 13, 14 years old, is to start initiating boys into men, which is what all indigenous societies used to do, and educate them about what a woman is, about what their lingam or penis is, and how it is to be connected to the heart, and show them how to do that. And then educate them on how, to connect with a woman and how to respect a woman and how to do those things from their teenage years. And, concurrent with that is, taking them on boy men only trips so that then they can be initiated in what it feels like to be a man, to be in their true masculine, without the feminine there, so they can really experience that. And most men are not experiencing that. They think you can go to the gym or lift weights, but you can tap into some testosterone there, but you're not really tapping into the essence of what it is to be a man. Because the essence of what it means to be a man is felt in connection with other men through the heart as well as testosterone, and is also felt when you're making love to a woman. So there's an old saying in India, king is not created in isolation, he's created by being with his queen. So in other words, the true masculine cannot really truly bloom unless he's in relationship with the feminine, and vice versa. A true woman is not birthed just by herself. She's birthed in relationship with her man, because it's a man that will help to form and guide her just as much as her energy helps to influence and helps a man to flow into his masculine as well. So there's a number of factors that unfortunately have been lost over the last 1,000+ years, where boys and girls are not being taught how to be men and women. And that needs to start in the teenage years. And there are some initiatives around the world that are starting to do that. But that essential heart genital connection, heart yoni lingam connection, has to start earlier. And then it becomes a lot more graceful. So, when my son is old enough, I'm definitely going to share some things with him about that and show him how to breathe that and connect that, and and his mother will too. So he will grow up knowing that connection and respecting and honoring that connection within himself first and foremost, and then with whoever he will make love with.
Mm.
So
And
it's
it,
up to the parent, essentially.
I think a key that pops up as you're talking about this early development of the boy into man is men are taught that feelings are weak and being vulnerable is weak. Yet vulnerability and feelings are a vital key to enter the heart. So in that initiation, I know there are some in the world, like the Mankind Project and so forth, that really invite men to return back to the vulnerable feeling state and that it's okay. And they give them like a re-imprinting from other men and they get embraced in their vulnerability and their feelings to let them know that it's really okay. And then that way they can enter this doorway of the heart to share with the beloved as they go forward, you know?
Yeah, that's great. But, again, it's an effect. So it's the parent's responsibility, really. So I have openly displayed my sadness, my vulnerability in front of my son ever since he was 3 or 4 years old. He's seen
Hmm.
me cry. I've expressed how sad I am. He's seen me, and so therefore he knows it's fine to have emotions because my big, strong papa is having these emotions. So that's fine. And since he was 3, 4 years old, I've made it a point that I'm not going to hide when I feel sad or when my heart is broken or whatever it is, whatever it was, rather. I don't hide it. And so he knows that it's perfectly acceptable to have emotions. And, I frequently talk to him about how he's feeling. How are you feeling today? How's your heart feeling? Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? Do you feel sad? Do you feel joyful? Do you feel angry? So I even had an emotional reel of all the different emotions up on his bedroom wall
Oh,
so
wow.
that, he conversant with emotions. So if
Mhm.
you just do these little things from early on, they'll grow up knowing that emotions are part of everything. Sexuality is part of everything. Meditation is part of everything. It's part of life. It's not something different or weird. So it's something perfectly normal. And
Mm.
then it's totally fine for them. So my son has been brought up like that. He's almost 11 now, and he knows. And I've apologized to him for things as well. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you in that moment. Sorry I couldn't do this. Sorry I couldn't do that. So he also knows that being humble is a great thing. And he knows that having any emotion is fine. Because I've been angry too, I've been sad, I've been this, I've been that. So he knows that every emotion is fine to have. So there's no repression, there's no suppression of anything. So I feel like it's up to the parents. We can't expect the Mankind Project or this or that to sort people out. If parents themselves did these small things regularly and brought up their children like that, there would not be any of these issues. They would not exist. And for sure later on, I will take my son when he's 13, 14. I will teach him about sacred sexuality, and I will explain a lot about the feminine and the masculine to him as well, as I'm sure his mother will. So it's our responsibility as parents to do that. It's not societies or the governments or the Mankind Project, who, by the way, have quite some issues with them as well, I've heard. Um, but it's nobody else's responsibility apart from the parents. And unfortunately, it's the parents that also distort the children too. And that has been the major factor as to why the sexual impulse has been curtailed in most people or distorted.
Mm. Mm. So I want to just shift the conversation a little bit from the young, the childhood now to the other end of things a little, where I wanted to talk to you also in your journey with women. If there's some wisdom you can share with us about women when they're getting older and, well, not old, but older, when they're getting into menopause, the estrogen is starting to drop. And a lot of women are starting to experience quite extreme symptoms, all kinds of symptoms from mental fog to anguish to not being able to have sex anymore because the vagina closes, actually, atrophies, to, yeah, all kinds of things that make life very difficult, extremely difficult for some women. And of course, some women have it much easier, but there are some that are really struggling. Well, many actually. It's a massive thing actually on the planet. A lot of women are having a hard time. I'm wondering, what you've noticed and what you feel is helpful, or maybe let's say what you've noticed, what you think the problem is, and what you think is helpful.
Well, menopause is an initiation into the wise woman because you're no longer means that you can just make love just because you can enjoy it, just because you love doing it. So that's a wonderful thing, firstly. It's a cause for celebration. And in any transition, there's a time for grieving as well, grieving that old part of you that is dying, but also being open to this new you, this deeper, wiser, richer, more mature woman who can celebrate the fact that she can make love now without the necessity or even worry of having children. You can just make love because you enjoy it. So that's surely a cause for celebration as well. Now, the problem in modern day society is that this transition is not honored because previously in the past, there would be grieving ceremonies, there would be celebration ceremonies, there would be groups of women who would get together in women's circles to connect about this through breath, through sound, through talking, through dialogue. That would all be there as this mutual support system. And there'd also be a really deep understanding from women who'd gone through menopause and had embodied themselves more, had become richer, deeper, more mature, more life affirmed women, had settled more into their deep feminine self. And that is the initiation of menopause. And I've seen a few women who have made this transition in such a graceful, beautiful, and elegant, and truly feminine way. Why? Because they had healed the issues connected with the womb, with their ovaries, and with their yoni, with their vagina, and all their sexual organs, the clitoris, the vaginal lips, the uterus, the womb, and so on. They had done the inner healing work and had activated those pathways of magnetic emotion and feeling and energy within them. And so when it came time to menopause, it really wasn't a big deal at all. They understood it was happening. They understood intuitively, biologically, instinctively that it was time to go into this more mature, richer, deeper, more still, more centered, more even radiant part of themselves in this deep feminine way. And they embraced that. And it wasn't hard to embrace it because they had done the healing work on their sexuality, on their womb and ancestral issues, on their ovaries and all the issues connected to that. So I've seen a lot of women who have had really heavy and painful periods, premenopause. And that was always to do with repressed emotions, repressed desires, sexual abuse, miscarriages, abortions, um, parental conditioning, and so on. Or even, their mother's lineage or their grandmother's lineage or ancestral patterns or family patterns. So as soon as those women healed those deeper emotional, sexual patterns, issues, emotions, and released those emotions from their womb and heart, lo and behold, their periods were no longer heavy and painful. They were actually a time to go deeper within themselves, which is traditionally what the indigenous societies did. So in India, for example, the Bulls of Bengal, which is uh, North India, um, they were real proper tantrikas. So they would celebrate the 3 days, 3.5 days of a period. And they even had very precise maps of what each 3-4 hour period in that 72 to 84 hour period of time would do. So they had really made a science out of it, but it was all the science of love because there were certain times in those 72 hours where it was really the most joyful, most pleasurable to make love, for example. And with my partners in the past, I've had amazing period times with them where we've been together and we've gone on a journey together in that time, emotionally and sexually as well. So not just in making love, which I found amazing when a woman is on her period to make love in a certain way is so beautiful and very intimate for both of us. And also emotionally, not even making love, but there's a journey you can go on, a man and a woman together emotionally in those few days that is really touching and bonds the man and woman closer together. So ultimately, it's just about releasing the blocks within the womb, ovaries, and heart that makes the periods heavy and that brings forth these severe, sometimes menopausal symptoms. But these menopausal symptoms are mainly because it's a signal from the body, mind, and the feminine self that, hey, hello, there's some healing to do here. Can you pay attention to me, please? Can you pay attention to my womb, to my yoni, to my heart? Can you pay attention to this part of me and give me some love and give me some nurturance and bring some healing to these parts of me that are screaming out for some attention because all pain is just a call for attention. And if we can investigate that pain or that fear or that suffering and can go deeper into that, we can hear why that pain is there and what we need to do in order to heal and release that pain so it's gone forever, so we can enjoy going deeper into our feminine self and going deeper into our rich, inner, graceful, mature womanhood.
Beautiful. Yeah. And you mentioned grief, and I feel that women are not prepared at all at how deep the metamorphosis is at menopause, how much is changing, how deeply it's changing, and even how the eye of the woman turns from looking outward to her family and the world, and then turns more inward into the self, and even how the energies turn inward without the blood leaving the body. The energies turn profoundly into the self. And that even can be a grief because there was so much interest in the outer, and now it's here. It's a celebration too, but there can be a grief in that. Um, mm.
Yeah,
Just so I'm going to ask you briefly in a moment if I've asked you to bring us a meditation to help us heal uh, into the space of the womb and the ovaries and connecting into the heart and perhaps weaving in some of this other layers of work you do where you work with the sound or Yeshua. I'm not sure what you've decided to do, but in terms of this healing you're speaking about, to do this little meditation, I don't know how long it's going to be, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about it before we go into it. Oh, and one
yeah,
Yeah, another question is you mentioned the nervous system before and how you work with the nervous system to help with the healing. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that and then tell us about the meditation before we go in.
yeah. So the nervous system is mediated through our spines, and the spine connects to the different chakras, and the chakras connect to the main endocrine glands within the system. So if we focus the life force into a specific area, which is best done physically, to be honest, in this context, um, then that part of you that hasn't been alive or that has been a bit dormant or a bit stagnant can suddenly receive this huge river of life force. And when that happens, then there's a bit of an explosion, which can feel really joyful and really cathartic and really releasing and really like a huge relief that, a burden that you've been carrying, a secret burden even, can be released. So the nervous system is what carries these shocks, these traumas, these hurts, these pains, and also holds a key to the feminine biology and chemistry um, and also the masculine biology as well. Um, but having those parts of us flow and ignite is really important. And the deeper that we can activate those parts of us, the more happy and content we will be. So, a really simple meditation, it's not even a meditation, it's more like a check in with yourself. So, if you want to put your left hand on your womb, which is just below your belly button, and then your right hand on your heart, so in the middle of your chest, and just close your eyes. And just feel these two parts of you. It's almost like there's two pulses here, like two heartbeats almost. We just feel this presence and feel the connection between your womb and your heart, or for men, your hara and your heart. And just start to feel like an infinity loop, which is like an sideways 8 number, connecting your womb to your heart. And just start breathing that, breathing up from the womb into the heart. Keep breathing this in this infinity loop, this golden 8. It's connecting your womb to your heart. Really focus on these energies in your womb and heart. And really feel the safety here, the security, your inner container and strength. Whenever you feel shaky or nervous, you can always return to this asana, this posture. Just breathing and connecting these two parts of you slowly and deeply. So taking deep breaths into your womb, breathing that up into your heart. I'm just going to say an Aramaic mantra for the womb connecting into the heart. Aramaic is a language that Yeshua, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, his real name was Yeshua, spoke. Om. Ah. 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 Focus on the womb. Ooh. Focus on your heart. Ma. Dropping down into the womb space. Ooh. Ah. To your heart. Ma.
Thank you. Feel those energies flowing through me now. It's beautiful. Thank you.
So that's actually
Good.
that's called the compassionate womb, and it's normally not done like that. It's normally done um, when I've taught it to thousands of people is when in groups of 20 to 40 people, women are lying down and they're breathing and making those sounds in the womb and heart. And so when you're doing that yourself in a particular way, it's extremely powerful. And yeah, I've experienced that so many times with so many people. that when you bring that power of the universal field, which is Allah, that's the universal breathing field within which all life is contained within yourself and in the whole universe. So when you connect your breath and your sound with the womb and the heart, and you bring real power and real love into that, it's extremely powerful and can be very joyful and ecstatic as well. So I was just sharing a little bit of that, but it's usually that the person themselves does that in a particular way.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I've, I've found that very helpful to feed love into the womb. We always want
Mm.
everyone to want to be loved, but when do people pause and truly love themselves and bring the energy of
Yeah,
from the heart into the womb and flood her with it? And the womb actually also loves. The womb loves the heart too. It's this beautiful love affair, isn't it? So yeah, it's
true.
great to get with it and get into that conversation and get them in relating as they are more consciously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and anytime a woman or even a man feels unsafe or wants to just tune in back to their own rhythm, their own harmony, their own self, you can just do that for a few minutes. Breathe and connect your womb to your heart, and you'll very quickly return back to yourself. And of course, you can go deeper with it too, but um, you can do it at any moment, for a minute or two throughout the day to just return back to yourself and feel your more peaceful, more still, more feminine self in amongst, whatever chaos or madness may be happening in your day or in your life or in your job or whatever it is.
So the sounds were in the womb. Is it alaha?
Un rahum malaha,
Malaha. And in the heart,
the malaha.
malaha. So the same for both.
Yeah.
Malaha.
And
Okay.
un rahum is in the womb and the malaha is in the heart.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Padma. Thank you so much for sharing so beautifully with us. I feel like we could just talk for hours and hours and hours. Like I'm like watching the time here, going, oh no, there's so much more to say, but we have come to time. I just thank you for your wisdom and your generosity to share with us. Um, I do want to mention that we are forming a group online later this year. We'll send out details and dates around going into the system for women in menopause and going into menopause or even out of menopause who would like to go into the deeper layers that need healing so that the journey going forward into your life can be a beautiful and joyful and full of chi and life force and full of you once some of these aspects of yourself have been met with presence and love and healing. And we'll be supporting that and guiding that later this year. So if you do want information, please come to the School of Sacred Sexuality and join the mailing list. I'll also put in Padma's details too, so you can get hold of him if you'd like to, and yeah, so forth. So however it works for you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to be able to share a little bit with you and um, with everyone listening and opportunity. And it's an amazing window of opportunity. So whoever is hearing this or wants to hear this, just reframe it in that way and then dive deeper into that doorway of opportunity and magical things can happen.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Padma. Namaste.
Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you.
Namaste.